have some breaking news now. A moderate earthquake has just rattled Los Angeles. I want to get to Sarah Seidner. She is at our LA bureau. Tell us about this. Could you feel this?
Absolutely, we could feel it. The building that we're in is about 15 floors. The entire building was shaking. You could look down on the streets and see that the light poles were moving back and forth. This was a pretty strong one, one that we haven't felt in some time here in the Los Angeles area. I can give you a little bit of information of where this earthquake was centered. It was centered in Ridgeview. It's about 150 miles northeast of Los Angeles, to give you some idea of how far away it is and the impact, because we certainly felt it here. We're located in Hollywood. I also want to give you some sense of how big it was. They're saying the magnitude of this is a 6.6. So a moderately strong earthquake certainly felt here in Ridgeview, where this is centered. There's a population of about 27,000 people, but obviously it has rippled out across this area. Certainly they felt it northeast of here in for example, Pasadena, someplace that a lot of people are familiar with. And to give you some idea of what a 6.6 is, when the last large earthquake that hit here and did quite a bit of damage was Northridge, and that earthquake was a 6.7. So this is just down a notch from that. But that earthquake, a lot of people remember because they saw, for example, a highway that fell in, and there was quite a bit of damage in the Northridge area where that was centered. Now this one's centered about 156 or so miles from Los Angeles. We could certainly feel it here across the Los Angeles area. We are hearing from people in other areas that are nearby. They certainly felt it. We do not have any information on whether or not there is damage, whether or not there are injuries, but it was certainly felt, and we'll get more information to you as soon as we get it. The earthquake, the folks here who are very familiar with how to deal with these are all gathering, the experts, the seismologists. I just talked to one of them. They are opening the earthquake center, which will be giving out more information as we get it. But I just wanted to say again, 6.6 earthquake in the Ridgeview area, which is about 150 miles from Los Angeles, felt all over Southern California.
And
Brianna.
Actually, as you know, these things sometimes change a little bit in the numbers. USGS is now saying that it's 6.4. This is still substantial. I mean, 6.6, 6.4. There's been at least one aftershock. That's what USGS is saying, Sarah. We're going to stay with this and just keep an eye on this because, I mean, look, I'm a Southern Californian. I went through the Northridge quake, but I was very far away from it. You're 150 miles from Ridgecrest. And it's important to note that, and as it happens with all earthquakes, we're waiting to get in those local reports because you're feeling a significant quake. Imagine what is happening there at the epicenter 150 miles away, right?
Absolutely. They can feel it much more strongly. It can create damage. Even a 6.4 downgraded a bit from when they first looked at these numbers, which was a 6.6. But yes, they can certainly feel it much differently. And it depends on what kind of earthquake it was, whether it was a back and forth or up and down. Those can really create a lot of damage. It just depends on exactly how shallow, for example, this was. But we certainly felt it. And I can tell you, I've been here about 5 years. This is the first time I've actually felt an earthquake here in Los Angeles that was strong enough to move this building, which is about 15 floors, move it significantly, where we could all really feel it, and we knew immediately we're having an earthquake right now. It lasted for probably 10 to 15 seconds here, where you can feel it, and time actually is a big deal. If this goes on for example, a minute, it can create a lot more damage, especially at the epicenter. It didn't feel that way here, but we do not yet know exactly what it felt like and how long it lasted. This is now being called a 6.4 magnitude earthquake there in the Ridgeview area, 150 miles or so from here in Los Angeles.
Okay, and Sarah, stick with me, if you will, as you keep an eye on this. I want to bring in our meteorologist, Tom Sater. He's at our weather center. And this is in Ridgecrest, right? This is the epicenter. Tell us a little bit about this, what you're looking for with the 6.4, and what some of the different factors are that could either give more or less damage in a situation like this.
Well, to be quite honest with you, Brianna, we cover earthquakes, it seems like, every week on our sister network, CNN International. This is the very first time I can remember in about 8 years where after an earthquake, you can't get the information from the USGS.
Really?
Their website is clogged, so we have little data. We will get it. It's just been slow, and they've kind of reamped and redid their website. What we know is pretty much between Las Vegas and Bakersfield. This is pretty much the area of what we're finding here, right in this region. This is very close to Death Valley National Park. Now, again, as mentioned, 150 miles away. The most important thing is, even though originally it was a 6.6, typically they all drop a little bit. 6.4 is still significant. Anything above a 6.0 is going to do some damage. The most important factor, though, is just how deep. And they record these in kilometers, 8 kilometers. So you're talking just a little over 10 miles deep. That's significant enough to absorb most of the shock and the energy. However, a lot of it depends on the soil in this region. Of course, in Southern California, the wave action does pretty much propagate outward. So there's no doubt there was some effects. And of course, as she mentioned, felt that in LA. What we're going to find out now are aftershocks. There is a site, another website called EMSC. It's a European site. It's much like the USGS. They've reported since, about 10:50 West Coast time, since about 5 after 10, there have been 3 smaller aftershocks, and one was a 4.7. Now, that's typical. If we have something that shakes a little bit stronger than this 6.4, then that'll be the earthquake, and this is considered a foreshock. But right now, this is what we're going with. 6.4, away from, of course, the cities, again, in between Las Vegas and Bakersfield. But you've got to remember, in the last few weeks, there has been a lot of interest in a kind of a swarm of smaller tremors that have been happening in California, and it has kind of sparked the interest on many seismologists that are wondering, hey, is something going to happen? Are we going to see a larger release of energy? Is this it, the 6.4? No one knows for sure. So we're going to try to dig in, get what we can from the USGS, and what they'll provide us with are a couple of graphs. They're computer models that look at the population in the area, and it'll show us a shake map. How many people are felt light shaking? How many moderate, strong, or very strong or violent? That'll come out, along with the possibility of injuries based on the population and where that shaking was taking place. So in a few more minutes, we should have much more information right now, but I've never seen the USGS site get crammed like this in the last 8 years. Quakes happen every week, but this one is significant, so we're going to be watching this one closely, obviously.
All right, Tom, we certainly are. I will tell you, Twitter is alight with people there in California reporting what they felt. I want to get back to Sarah Seidner. You have some new reporting, Sarah. What can you tell us?
Sure, Tom's absolutely right. It's off the chain, if you will, social media, always, even when there's a small one. But we do want to give you some information now that we are hearing ourselves. There was a hotel in Ridgecrest that we were able to talk to. They said they have some damage. They saw the floors rippling. So we're starting to hear some of what is happening where this earthquake was epicentered. The 6.4 is what USGS is saying now is the magnitude of this quake, that there has been damage according to a hotel that we were able to talk to. They talked about the building moving, and they talked about the floor rippling. They do have damage. So the first report that we're hearing now of damage there in the Ridgecrest area, about 150 miles from Los Angeles. I also want to tell you this. We have just spoken with someone in Las Vegas. That's about 269 miles away from Los Angeles. They felt this earthquake all the way in Las Vegas. And as you know, the further away you get from the epicenter, the lesser effect that you're going to get from an earthquake. But the fact that they felt it all the way in Las Vegas, that they felt a shake, they felt a tremor, is significant here. Again, a 6.4 is a moderately strong earthquake. It can do damage, and now we are hearing there is damage in Ridgecrest, according to one hotelier that is there, that they certainly saw it. And to see the floor ripple, I mean, for people who have never experienced this, it is unlike anything else. Hurricanes, we know they're coming, right? You get a forecast that a hurricane's coming. Earthquakes, not so much. There is some technology out there that will give you sometimes 10 seconds. Japan has some great technology to give you some idea to take cover. But here in the States, that is far and few between. And so you just all of a sudden start feeling the ground moving underneath you, or if you're in a building like we are that is elevated, you start feeling the building sway. There is a lot of concern in California in particular about building codes. There are a lot of buildings that are not yet up to code, a lot of old buildings that they have to retrofit. And so this is always a concern if something is not built to withstand a certain magnitude earthquake. There can be extremely devastating damage. We've seen that before. Obviously, there's a lot of freeways here with a lot of overpasses that can be pretty vulnerable to an earthquake. You saw that in Northridge, of course, and if you were anywhere in that area, you certainly felt it. The folks in Ridgecrest would have, certainly the whole population there, about 27,000 people, would have felt this one for sure, since we felt it all the way here and they felt it all the way 269 plus miles away in Las Vegas. But again, just wanted to reiterate that we have heard now a report coming into us of damage from a hotelier there in Ridgecrest. Floors rippling, stuff sort of falling down, and we will be getting some pictures, I assure you, whether it's on social media or from the local stations that are in the area, and we will be heading to that area shortly as well. But we should mention 6.4, and now we have had an aftershock of about a 4.0 according to USGS.
Yeah, and part of the issue too is the damage that will be assessed afterwards. Even if, God forbid, there's not going to be damage like we saw obviously in something like Northridge. Those quakes are few and far between, thank goodness. Yes. But when you do have quakes of this size, there are issues about the structural integrity of buildings, of homes, things that are going to be assessed over time afterwards. I was just texting with our contributor Samantha Vinograd, who was in Santa Barbara. She said that she felt an earthquake just before she went live with us here just a few minutes ago. I checked that out. She's a little over 200 miles from Ridgecrest. So this is certainly something that people are feeling, as you said, much farther away than you are. And this is, so right now we're expecting that we're going to get obviously someone on the ground there in Ridgecrest. I also think when we're talking about floors rippling here, that's the question, is what kind of damage is coming out? What kind of movement was this? Was this jarring? Was this rolling? And those are going to be the questions that we're answering here in the short term, hopefully.
Absolutely. And we'll start getting those reports in shortly. The Los Angeles Police Department, I should mention, has put out a tweet to everyone that if you felt it, let us know if there's any damage. Let us know if there are any problems, any injuries. So all of the apparatus here, the rescue teams, are all ready to assist in whatever way is needed. And yes, look, we get earthquakes all the time, as you heard from our fabulous meteorologist there. We get them all the time. They're usually small enough where you actually don't even feel it. We have 1.2s, 3.1s where you're not even sure if something happened. You feel something sometimes, and you're not sure, was that an earthquake or was that just somebody dropping something up above us. This one was unmistakable. You felt the building, you felt it shake, and it didn't stop immediately. It went on for quite a few seconds. So you knew, and anyone who's ever sort of experienced one of these, that this was a fairly big one because of the length of time and because of the strength and what it did to sort of the infrastructure as well, Brianna.
Yeah. All right, Sarah, stick with me. I'm bringing in Tom Sater again. Tom, you were saying that it's been hard to get in touch with USGS. Have you been able to see any more information from their website or anything, or is that still not working?
It is still down, Brianna, believe it or not. Once it comes up, I mean, the shake maps are going to tell us everything. However, I'm going to give you information from the counterpart of the European company that does pretty much the same thing as the USGS. They monitor the world as well. Let me read some of your tweets from you. First of all, let me just tell you, between Las Vegas and Bakersfield, pretty close to the Death Valley National Park, right in the center here. You see where Los Angeles is. I believe we might have a few graphics. I'm going to ask my producer, Taylor, if he can bring those up for us. Here it is. Originally 6.6. It is not unusual to see it drop somewhat. The USGS does this. They recalibrate it. They look at the energy and the waves. And again, 6.4. That's significant. Anything that's 6.0 or greater is going to cause some damage. The depth is the most important factor right now. 8 kilometers. When we cover these earthquakes around the world that are 6.2 or greater, many of them, Indonesia, you're going to find them 400 kilometers deep. That's significant. It absorbs all the energy. 8 kilometers, there's going to be some shaking going on, and that's why we're waiting on the shake map. So again, 1033. More of these tweets from this European company. It's called EMSC. Let me read some of these because they're saying now there's been a number of aftershocks and they're pretty close within 20-25 miles around Ridgecrest. Again, a 4.2. This is 13 minutes ago. That's about 22 miles northeast of Ridgecrest. They come down, and of course, they've got another one that was a 3.9. They're saying there's been as many as 5 already since the main quake of a 6.4.